Hello and welcome to another episode of Movie Bollocks. It is I, Howard H. Smith, of the other podcast, Talking Bollocks, and of, Acid Rain, all the usual. Hello, come on. If you're listening to this, we know each other quite well by now, don't we? And as you know, occasionally I like to do an episode of Movie Bollocks. There's more coming your way later this month of April 2021. I say that because you might be listening to this in some far-flung date, in some far-flung corner of the future, and think, well, what do you mean this week? Well, there's this month. That's what I mean by this month, April 2021. So here I am. I am recording this for you and for me, because let's face it, I enjoy doing these. I didn't think, oh, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to start a podcast for everybody else. Nah, no one does that. It's ego, basically. That's what it is. And this episode's guest is Gary Foalle, my friend Gary Foalle. I've known Gary for years, over 30 years. He's one of my best friends. And you will hear in this conversation, it's like listening to two friends who haven't spoken for a while, catching up about movies. I mean, that's it. That's the idea, really. We'll go off on all sorts of tangents. It's tangent fucking city. And just so you know now, this has not been edited. There are points where you'll think, hang on, that does sound like an edit, because I thought that when we were actually doing it, because like I said, it's two mates chatting. So we'll be talking away, and then one of us finishes a point, and then the other will just like completely introduce a whole new subject. And it might sound like it's edited and we've deliberately gone off on a new discussion point. That's not it. That's just the way we talk. Hey, us Northerners, although I've now been down here so long in London that I've actually spent more time here than I have living in Yorkshire. That is shocking. I am going to have to hand my Yorkshire passport back. It's terrible. If you're listening to this elsewhere in the world, there's no such thing as a Yorkshire passport. Okay, that's just a joke. It's my little joke. Very, very little. In fact, it's so little, I've had to fucking explain it. So maybe it's not even a joke. Anyway, so I'm just going to go through a few movies before get started. So straight up, The Invitation. Now, this was recommended to me by Gary Foalle. That's right, yeah. And I fucking hated it. I lasted 45 minutes of the 90. I couldn't survive because I just hated everybody in it. There's one bloke in it who is not a conspiracy theorist, but he's just got a feeling that this party that he's been invited to, that there's something not quite right. And I agreed with him and I sided with him, but I couldn't watch the movie any longer because everybody else at the party, I wanted to die. I just fucking hated them. And I couldn't and I didn't like him enough to hang in there with him to see what happened. So I can only, I mean, I shouldn't really even mention this because I'm reviewing a movie that I've watched half of. So it's half a movie, half a review. It might turn into the best thing ever. But if you watch it, and after 45 minutes you're thinking, I'm interested, I want to know more, well done, you got further than I did, and you send me a message and say, how did you not like this? It was brilliant. Because that's the kind of thing movies are, isn't it? It's art. You either get it or you don't. You're either into it or you're not. And let's face it, I wasn't into that. But it's all right. No major stars. It's about a couple who are invited to a party by his ex-wife and her new partner, and they meet up with a load of friends, and they've just got back from Mexico. The ex-wife and the new partner have just got back from Mexico, and they've invited loads of friends, and it's the first time they all see each other, and things just seem a bit off, but like I said, didn't care too much for it. Next up is Cold Pursuit. Now, this was recommended to me by Gary Foalle. Yeah, and we're going to talk about this in the podcast, so I'll move on, but that's coming up. Wild Target. Now, that's from about 2010. I knew it was old when I spotted one of the locations, which is behind somewhere that I used to work. I used to work at a newspaper, and and there's a scene in the multi-story car park that was basically behind the office where I used to work years and years and years ago. I really enjoyed it. It stars Bill Nighy and Emma Blunt and Yay and Rupert Grint. Yeah, okay. I mean, I think he's given up on acting now, hasn't he? It made me laugh. I'm not going to say it's funny, because that is implying that it's by definition funny. I mean, everybody has their own version of funny. I enjoyed it. At one point, I thought it was going to slightly stray into, almost sort of like just sort of stupid British farce comedy. And it teetered on the edge, and it didn't go over. It stayed, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was quite smart. Bill Nighy's great in it. It made me laugh, and that's quite rare. I just say that because, being a comedian myself, and also living on my own. I mean, it's got to be a pretty bloody funny movie if I'm laughing at it sat here on my own. There you go. But then again, not everyone laughs at the same thing. Okay, I've also put in the 4 hours and 2 minutes and watched Justice League, the Zack Snyder version, and Gary and I will also be talking about that in the podcast, so let's move on. Next up, I saw a movie called Doors. It's just simply called Doors, Doors. It's a sci-fi, it's in 3 or 4 parts, and each part is directed by somebody different, but the narrative and the story remains the same. So it's quite interesting. And I was really surprised to see it getting such a low mark on review sites like IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes. I didn't have a problem with it, and I thought there was some really interesting ideas in there. I'm sure it's a bit loose. It's kind of like it's a bit of a mixed bag. Some parts of it are better than others, and that's whether that's down to the different directors or just the stage of the narrative they were dealing with. It's hard to say. But I enjoyed it as an experiment, perfectly harmless, really, it was okay. I mean, put that on the poster. It's not exactly a glowing review, but then again, you might like it more than me, you might like it less than me, who fucking knows? But I thought it was interesting. It's science fiction. Basically, something happens to the world and a load of people disappear overnight. I know it sounds like it sounds like a fucking setup for a Netflix series, but it's interesting, and it's narrated by a talk radio host, quite a cocky so-and-so, much like myself, I have to say. It was interesting. It was interesting, and yeah, give it a whirl if you fancy in the mood for that. Next up, Wanda. Main reason for watching this, stars Aaron Eckhart and Tommy Lee Jones. Now, I've got to say, I am a bit of a sucker for Tommy Lee Jones. I don't know what it is, ever since way back in the day in the 80s. If you can find a movie anywhere starring Tommy Lee Jones called The Park Is Mine, then watch it. I mean, it's dated as fuck, but I just loved the premise as a kid. It was basically he's a disgruntled Vietnam vet, and he takes Central Park hostage. The park is mine. And in fact, I think it's Central Park. I'm not sure. I didn't know I was going to mention this. I didn't know I was going to go off on a Tommy Lee Jones tangent. So forgive me if I can't exactly remember all the details of the plot of a film I last saw about 20 years ago. But I'll try and dig it out and watch it again before the next podcast, so I can apologise if it is now shit. But I remember it being really good, so if you want to go watch it. Anyway, let's get back to the film that he's fucking in, and I'm supposed to be reviewing, which is not The Park Is Mine. It's Wanda. It's a conspiracy theory, 90-minute movie. I enjoyed it up to a point. Things happened in it that made me enjoy it less. There's twists, there's turns. One thing that I did find a bit frustrating, and some people have mentioned, is that for some reason, right, Aaron Eckhart in it he's cool. He's a conspiracy theorist, and Tommy Lee Jones is his mate who kind of is also a conspiracy theorist. They have this like little radio show, and this woman says, "I'll give you $10,000 to find out what happened to my daughter. The police say she was in a car crash, but I know she wasn't. Can you help?" And it goes from there, and the plot thickens when he gets to the town of Wanda. And it's clearly obvious this girl did not die in a car crash. We know that because we see her death in the very first scene, just in case you thought I was giving too much away. No, I've seen it, you haven't. I am pathetic. So anyway, that's Wonder. But the main problem is, like I said, Aaron Eckhart is really cool, right? And I really like him, and he's great in it. But for some reason, there's a voiceover there's a voiceover track as well that he does, as if he's talking into his dictaphone. And for some reason, sometimes it's almost illegible. So, prepare your ears. But it's a bit like this. I'm in this town of McGilliveen, and I can't find her, and I know she didn't die in a car crash, and I can't find out what did happen to her, and I think the police might be in on this. Fucking hell, I'm not going to do that again. Oh, dearie me. Oh, right, okay, I haven't got any water. I'm totally not prepared. Cold coffee, here we go. Oh, good Lord. That is the arse end of a cold coffee. But I had to do it because I was doing a stupid voice, as you know, because you were listening. Hopefully you haven't switched it off yet and thought, that guy's finally fucking lost it. If you did, then fair enough. Then next up, kind of similar-ish. No, it's not similar-ish really, but apart from the fact that it's also 90 minutes, is Spiked. Fucking hell, I'm not going to do that stupid voiceover again. I wonder how Aaron Eckhart managed. Deary me. Anyway, Spiked. It's based on a true story of a town that was had a crooked police force, and it's really interesting. It's not a documentary. It's based on a true story. But it's really cool. It's set near the border. It's set near the Mexican border in America, in a little town. And you could almost imagine this not being based on true events. You could imagine this, being, a kind of like set in, a fictional tale set now to describe the tensions between the Mexican community and Americans but that's not really it. That's not what it's about. It's about the power of a local newspaper, because this is kind of set quite a few years ago. Well, not quite a few years ago, about 20 years ago, when people were still reading newspapers. Or as I like to call it, the analog internet. So anyway, it is a little town called, little town, can't remember what it's called. I nearly said Town Called Wonder, but no, that was the other movie. And then there's a Fish Called Wonder, and that's a completely different movie. And it's called Spiked, and Spiked is what used to happen to newspaper stories. They used to get put on a spike if they were withdrawn, or there was a legal challenge or anything to them. So, there's crooked police force, local paper. It does sound a bit cheesy, but it's based on a true story. Slightly unsatisfying ending, but it does have an ending. I'd have liked to know more about the actual case and what happened afterwards. But that's just me. That's my natural inquisitive nature. You may well watch it and go, that was a nice little ending. They tied everything up. Maybe I'm just greedy and I wanted more. Anyway, final movie to run past you is a movie called Cherry, starring Tom Holland. Yes, that's right, the new Spider-Man. Well, this couldn't be less Spider-Man-y. It's one of those movies that is a fucking journey. This character starts out and he's just this meek, mild kid, and he meets a girl and she dumps him and he signs up to go to the army, and then he goes in the army, and then he comes out the army, and then and you really do follow these young kids and their relationship all the way through their life. It's about 2 hours, 20 minutes. It is an absolute journey. It really is. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Tom Holland is brilliant in it. It was moving. It was moving. There, I said it. Okay, that's man code for it might make you well up. You might have to pretend that you've got something in your eye. But yeah, I mean, but there's so much to it. And as I said, Tom Holland is superb in it. So is Kyra Bravo. She is brilliant as Tom Holland's girlfriend. She is absolutely brilliant. And so is Jack Rayner. He's known as Pills and Coke. That is his name, Pills and Coke. I really, really enjoyed it. It's hard to explain what it is because it's a number of movies, because there's a good sort of 45 minutes where it's a war film, because he signs up for the army. He goes to Iraq for a couple of years. So at the end of it, I found myself going back through the movie in my head in the chronological order of the film and thinking, well, it's a love story. It's a love story. It's a war story. It's a bank robbery movie. It's about addiction, about love, about loss, about death, about life, about redemption. I think I've said enough. You know, if you're interested, watch it and let me know what you think. But I really enjoyed it, and that was called Cherry. So, enough of that. And now let's have some chat. This is Gary and I having a right old chat just the other day. Yeah, well, that is a really good point. Is you know, have we been watching too much? You know, says the man who's like, you know, reviewing like 30 odd films on these Movie Bollocks things, and it's like I do find myself, I've got a really good memory for movies and stuff, but I find myself having to have like IMDb open sometimes just remind me what it was. Absolutely the same. Yeah. And we just watch it. I mean, especially in lockdown, just been watching so much, and there's so much out there. Well, we say lockdown, but let's face it, it's a year now, isn't it? Yes. Yeah. You know that, yes, there's been periods you've gone out, you know, more in the summer and things. But, you know, to my mind, I'm just looking at what have I done in the last year. I've watched a shitload of stuff. yeah, no, I mean, I turned 50 this time last year, and it's like, oh, right, so what have you done with your 50s? Well, I've watched a lot of films, basically. Yeah, that's fucking it. I've done a few podcasts about the films I've been watching, but apart from that, not a great deal. Yeah, it has. You're right. It's been a year, and of course, it's been a year of not being able to go out at night, and so really, it is kind of like, well, you stick a movie on, don't you? Well, I mean, to me, it's just you know, you do your work stuff, whatever you do, you know, whatever. You know, whether that dinner for the kids or whatever, and at 8 o'clock, that is it. There's a film going on, like. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah, good. And if they're up in the rooms doing Xbox and art or whatever they fancy doing, or chatting to friends or whatever, then it can be something I wouldn't watch with kids. And if not, I'm trawling through fucking, you know, what is there that they haven't seen, you know, and kids, you know, if you think about like Netflix and all that stuff, majority of the stuff's like 15 and 18, isn't it? Yeah. Or the stuff we're attracted to, you know. Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Actually, is the fact that, like, you know, everyone's been saying, oh, you know, they're trying to get as much out as possible, you know, to keep people entertained and blah, but sort of, you know, kids movies. They're not as prolific as you know, regular movies as it is. No. I presume that's been a bit of a tough one for you. Well, honestly, Howard, I've watched like probably every animated film, you know, as in the Pixar era, you know. Yeah. You know, it's very difficult finding stuff, but I can't wait to sort of allow them to watch Poltergeist and ease them into genres, you know, with stuff that isn't too disturbing. Just let's start off, you know. But when I was their age, obviously I was watching shit like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Dawn of the Dead, you know. Yeah, you're a typical parent, aren't you? You watched all that. Yeah, you watched all that. Yeah, hypocritical. Yeah. You watched all that shit when you were 14, 15. And if you caught your kids watching it, you'd be like, "What the fucking hell do you think you're doing?" Yeah. And I'm now the queasy parent who the subject of sex comes up in a film, and I'm like, oh shit, you know, my daughter doesn't know where to look. I don't know where to look. You know what I mean? I'm thinking, God, I hope this doesn't get too, you know, graphic or too, you know, the sort of discussion they're having isn't too, you know, shocking. Yes. Basically. Yeah. And so, you're just hoping you don't have to have a conversation afterwards. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, if you think back to the 80s, you know, yes, you got a bit of kind of Adrian Lynn type of, you know, some dodgy lighting, right? And some saxophone music. Yeah. You probably saw some breasts in a man's bum, right? Yeah.
But now you get something like a Seth Rogen film, and they're just graphically talking about, anal sex or something. That's kind of more shocking than kind of a soft sex scene in, Dreamscape or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I know what you mean. I know exactly.
Yeah, I mean, certainly something like Game of Thrones is just far more hardcore than an 80s action film, which would have set aside, 2 minutes for the sex scene in every film.
Yeah. No, I do know what you mean. Yeah, there is definitely well, times have changed. That's all there is to it. I mean, we're fucking streaming movies instead of going down going down Blockbuster or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. In the 80s, that was a kind of a video highlight when you were 14. But I think when you're 50, you're just like, all right, I guess what's going to happen? Let's move on to the next scene and get moving with the story of the film.
I know what you mean because basically as well is like it's sort of like, look, if I want to watch that, there's a whole internet to go looking for. And do you know what? It's even better because there's no acting in it. There's no stories. It is just all sex scenes. Yeah. If that's what you're after. I know what you mean. I've kind of got, I hadn't really considered it, but now you bring it up. Yeah, I do kind of think, oh, fucking, hurry up. Can we get back to planning the robbery instead of them shagging?
Something we talked about recently was, do you really want to see Liam Neeson's saliva, having a neck on with Viola Davis, remember?
Oh, the opening scene of Widows. I mean, look, I've got nothing against pasty Irish middle-aged blokes or black middle-aged women. And I've got nothing against seeing them kissing. But that screen kiss, I think I took against that film from the very beginning. It's like they've got this flesh banana between them that they're passing in and out of each other's mouths. It's horrendous.
Yeah, we're getting on.
Yeah, clearly.
I just read that today that Sharon Stone's biography was getting a release. Obviously, a massive star in the 80s, and definitely easy on the eye to the teenage kid,
Yes.
I mean, if one of the first, a crush in the 80s, I had a crush.
Oh, yeah, she was a proper sex symbol.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And she's also in the Netflix series Ratcheted, which is
I just watched it, yeah.
That to me, I enjoyed the series. I thought everybody was really good in it. But also I've mentioned it on the podcast before, but just the art direction. I mean, every scene looks like you could just pause it and print it off and mount it on the wall.
I mean, that I don't know much about the producer, kind of showrunner guy, Ryan Murphy, and there's Brad Fulchuk, there's another guy, I think he might be married to Gwyneth Paltrow now, I'm not sure, but for me personally, historically, the first thing I saw that they did was Nip Tuck.
Right.
I don't know if you ever saw it or were a fan. I absolutely loved it, but it had the same kind of dark, the kind of darkness in the sort of underlying, like sexuality and stuff that's in all of the work, like American Horror Story, American Crime Story maybe has a little bit, certainly Ratchet, there's always like kind of, I don't know, like sort of sick violence in a way, you know what I mean? But
yeah, so
it's kind of done in a way where it's not real,
Yeah. No, I know what you mean because Nip Tuck, you're going back there. I remember when that came out, and that was really kind of daring for its time as well, because it really sort of it kind of pushed the envelope a bit.
But from there, when you saw the kind of doctor's office, you always start with a consultation of someone who wanted some kind of plastic surgery, and again, the kind of colours of the office and all the design of the sets and everything, it had that quality then, which I think is even more, prevalent in Ratchet because it's a period time thing and there's all the beautiful classic cars and all that stuff. But I think going all the way back then, they had that eye for those sets,
Well, do you know what? Because it's so extreme in Ratcheted, which I really enjoyed, and anyone listening, it's worth it's worth checking out. But it's almost cartoon-like. Do you know what I mean? It's almost to the level of the animation because clearly they've gone in and fucked with the color palette. And I mean, there's times where she'll walk out the front door of a house and her coat and the grass and the colour the house is painted are exactly the same.
Yeah,
absolutely,
and
And if you can imagine it, like it's almost like a Tom and Jerry cartoon. The kind of way it looks, and you can imagine some of the characters, being that kind of sort of like like the humans in Tom and Jerry. It's just really bright. But also, there's some amazing locations in it, like the little motel on like the edge of a cliff. And also Sharon Stone's house, the house that I'd love to know whose house that really is, because it's just it's incredible.
And I would hope and think that it is a real location. It's not maybe some of the interiors are in a studio, but chances are they filmed it on, in a house,
Well, funnily enough, I had that discussion because when we were able to get out for a bit, I was able to travel up and keep my mum company for a couple of weeks, and I watched Ratcheted there. And funnily enough, she said that's definitely a real house because she wanted me to pause it so she could analyse the antiques in the fucking background. She's been in antique dealing, and she was like, right, well, that's so and so, and that's she goes, this is a collector's house without a doubt, where this has been filmed. I'd love to know, but again, this is a prime example of how we started out talking about movies, but almost straight away you've gravitated towards talking about TV programs, because they are so prevalent now, and also the big one is Mandalorian, which has basically saved the movies because the movies let us down.
Absolutely agree, Howard. Again, I've not looked too much into the behind the scenes. I did watch a couple of those extra episodes, but I subscribed to Disney purely to watch The Mandalorian, and then it kind of expired by the time I got to the end, and I only caught a couple of those extras before my contract ended. So obviously, the major thing is that they shoot on these sets where they have a projected environment behind them. So instead of being stood in front of a giant green screen, that actually in space, however it might be. Which seems like an absolutely state-of-the-art and groundbreaking way to do it, and better for the actors and everyone involved as well, obviously.
Well, it makes complete sense, doesn't it? I mean, Ewan McGregor often talks about the trilogy that he was in. He said, well, basically, that was like, 6 years of walking into rooms and looking up. And that was basically, that's what that was. That clearly showed the fact that it's made by that they've got huge fans in there. They've got people who understand, their legacy. They understand the story and all of the the fan fiction and basically the history of the show. And it's so in depth. It's brilliant. And how the same company can make that TV show and also make those three fucking shit movies. But we did talk about this last week. I should probably I'll just do an aside. But at this point, I need to tell you, Gary and I were supposed to do this last week, but he had his COVID jab, so wasn't feeling too clever. So he decided, he gave me a call and said, look, I'm feeling really rough. Let's do it next week. And I was like, okay, fine. And we ended up spending 2 hours on the phone talking about movies anyway.
We should have did the COVID diaries last week. That would have worked, you know.
True. But I remember something from that conversation, and when we were talking about basically the last Star Wars trilogy that came to the cinema, and the fact that it wasn't written as a trilogy, they did it bit by bit with different directors, and it's just all over the fucking show. And I thought you came up with a great analogy, which was like when you were a kid and you used to pass notes round in a group or in class, and you draw a monster, and somebody had to draw the feet, and then you'd fold it over, and then somebody had to draw the body, and then you'd fold it over, and then somebody would draw a head, and you'd fold it, and then you open it up to see what it looked like. And you'd all piss yourselves, and it's like that's what they did with the last trilogy of Star Wars. I think you're absolutely spot on. I really do.
I think yes.
It was just a shit show, wasn't it? It was like we'll make one. We're like first one, right? Okay, we're not going to go mad. We'll just do another Death Star story. Okay, fine. And then after that, it was like right, okay. It really fell apart. And now I look back on that, The Force Awakens, and it was great at the time. But I think as you mentioned, it's a bit sort of meh now. Yeah,
it tainted. I think as it went downhill, it just tainted The Force Awakens. And, you know, it's every Star Wars film that comes out, I'm there at midnight, and I'll do it again when they release more. And, you know, we're such fans, as you know, Howard, but I think I'll always make excuses, you know, and when you come out of the cinema, you're quite excited as to what you've just seen. It takes a bit of reflection on it to go, actually, you know, I'm excited because I saw guys with lightsabers or new shit or the design's beautiful, the music was great. But, you know, if it wasn't a Star Wars film, I would rate it a lot lower out of 10.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I have to say,
I've got a soft spot for them. That's the thing, isn't it?
Well, I've got to say, I think The Force Awakens, I felt good about. The Last Jedi, I enjoyed because you know I didn't bring all these expectations to it.
Yeah.
But I have to say, when I was watching The Rise of Skywalker, it got to a point where I was like, "Oh right, you're going to pretend Chewie's dead, are you?" You know. Oh, spoiler alert, by the way. But yeah, complete my contractual obligations.
Mind you, I wouldn't have been surprised if they decided to kill anybody off because they'd already been killing off people that I was quite excited to see in a new trilogy, even though, you know, in their defence, you didn't need them old characters because, you know, they didn't make enough of John Boyega for one person, you know.
Yeah, that's true, and also the thing that comes up as well is that it's a fucking small universe, isn't it? I mean, everybody keeps bumping into each other. I mean, there's supposed to be shitloads of planets and all the rest of it.
That does go for the Mando as well, of course. You know, there's too much coincidence, isn't there?
Yeah, there is like, you know...
I suppose at least he's going back to a planet where you know some of these characters would be, I suppose.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, he's not just randomly bumping into them on a battle station or something, is he? So, yeah.
Yeah. But, yeah, I think Rise of Skywalker, during that film, I was like, yeah, this isn't necessarily working for me at the moment. And you know, John Boyega, Daisy Ridley, they should be the characters that you're excited to see.
Yeah.
In the next trilogy, but they just kind of got a bit lost amongst characters we already knew. But you know, such is life. That you know, Star Wars is just like you say. It's getting to the stage now where I kind of feel like they're taking advantage. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Howard, one thing to sum up my Star Wars lifetime journey, of course, was for my 50th. I was planning to visit friends in the States, and you know, I was going to live the dream of going to the Star Wars world, you know, Disney World, or Galaxy's Edge, isn't it? Yeah. Obviously, I'm not going at the minute. Maybe next year. Let's see what happens. But yeah, it's amazing to think. Imagine as a kid that you go to Star Wars world, you know.
Oh,
fantastic!
Mate. I know. I know. Well, look.
Although I would be equally as excited as a bloke, of course.
Well, look. Speaking of other worlds, although that might be a bit of a giveaway, Block Island Sound, mate. What do you? I mean, that's one thing. I don't think we covered that much last week, or at least I don't.
No, I don't think we. You know, I just mentioned one thing about it, and I think that was a separate, maybe the text or something. But yeah, really enjoyed it, Howard. Really enjoyed it.
Me too. And it's that classic 90-minute movie, isn't it?
And it was just the atmosphere of it, everything about it, ominous, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah, right. Well, the thing is, I thought the key is the opening scene. So not giving anything away here, but the key is the opening scene where you've got this fisherman lying on the floor of his boat, on the deck of his boat, as I believe they call it on a ship, not a floor. So he's lying on the deck of his boat, and there's all sorts of shit on the deck as well, like, you know, fish and all sorts, and his eyes are really bloodshot. And he's he's clearly like spaced out to fuck. And you're just thinking, right, okay, that's the opening scene. You know, and it's like, right, what's going on here then? And then it just sort of, and yeah, he goes back to shore. But right from the off, you're like, okay, so we already know straight away something is not right here. You know, and there's also a sort of odd sound in the distance, and they live on an area called Block Island, hence Block Island Sound. Yeah, straight off, it is ominous, isn't it? It's like it's threatening. Yeah, that there's like, you know, what's the you know, when they're censoring films, they say, you know, it contains like minor threat or whatever it is. Do you know what I mean? And you're like, there's something threatening about this.
Yeah, I mean, something we said in the COVID diaries last week was that it was reminiscent of the vibe was reminiscent of the 1970s version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Yes,
it kind of had that, and something about the protagonist's father, who is the guy who's at the start is lying on the fishing boat. Something about just, you know, the appearance of him was reminiscent of that. You know, you can't give too much away, but
yeah, he looks. He's got a passing resemblance to Donald Sutherland, doesn't he?
Yes, but I also thought because they live in an area which probably has a cold climate, the guy had a beard. You know, well, you know, like anyone with a beard's got to live in the Arctic. I don't know, but
I think that's the law, actually. Yeah.
He was very reminiscent of one of the characters in The Thing.
Yeah.
And I also thought the vibe of the film, again, had the feeling of The Thing as well.
Yes. Yeah.
Where you're not quite sure what's going on, and you're not sure where the danger's coming from, but there's something not right. It was like that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I love a film where as soon as the credits go up, you think, right, I'm watching this again.
Yeah. You know what it is about it is, it had an interesting title. I had it on my list. I heard you recommend it. I thought, oh, well, if Howard likes it, I'll definitely check it out. And I really enjoyed it, and there was no expectation. Star Wars, you're going in there, you're wanting it to be a certain thing, and it has to live up to it. You put a film like this on, even if it wasn't good, it doesn't matter. It's just worth checking out, and you're not losing anything. It's 90 minutes. But as it happens, really good, and I've been recommending it ever since. Yeah,
me too. And also, you know, it's got the key things for me, 90 minutes and a great ending, an ending that made me smile. And it's not the kind of film that will kind of make you smile, but the ending kind of made me smile, just thinking, yeah, that's a really good point. You know, when you hear the speech,
yeah,
and you just think that is awesome. That is fucking awesome. Yeah. And it just came from nowhere as well. You know, typical Netflix. It's just like, it's appeared, I'll watch that.
Well, what I haven't got my head around, and there's probably two schools on it, and both probably apply, is where do Netflix get their films? Because you assume there's probably an element of films that they commissioned to be made, and they put the money into, hence The Irishman.
Yeah.
Which obviously has, a stellar crew and cast and, renowned artists involved. Yet Netflix give them the money to produce the film, right? But other films, I'm assuming, have already been made, and Netflix buy them at film festivals or, the kind of work in the same way a distributor does for cinema,
Oh, yeah.
So you never know. Obviously, it'll say a Netflix movie, but you never know. Is this something they've greenlit from the start, or is it something they've picked up that's already been it's been completed when they've bought it? I don't know. So it's difficult to ascertain the quality, what you're going to get, because you don't know where it's come from, where it's originated. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And the thing is, it's just like, I don't know. It's like I've gone from maybe, to use a fishing analogy, because we were talking about Block Island Sound. I've gone from being somebody who sits on the edge of a river with a fishing rod, casting and catching the occasional movie. Now I'm just in a boat on the ocean with a big fucking trawler net.
Yeah.
And I'm just hauling a shitload of stuff on board, throwing most of it away and only remembering, a small percentage of it.
Yeah. Well, see, when you were 14, if the opening production, when it has all the production companies, you kind of have one. Now you've got about like 10 of, sometimes up to 10 companies putting money into the film, so you get all of these graphics at the start of the film.
Oh yeah. Know? Oh, sometimes you think, oh right, we're in. Oh, this is cool. And then a few seconds later, it's like, oh no, the film hasn't started. That's one of the many fucking people who put money into the fucker.
Yeah. But back in the 80s, you kind of got a something like a Bruckheimer Simpson production.
Miramax.
And you knew you were going to like it, even though now I probably wouldn't like it. But
yeah.
You knew that things like that. Yes, Miramax were like that kind of
Carol
indie film. The indie film that was going to be, get a big release.
Yes.
Obviously, you don't want to say, Miramax now. It's a dirty word, but back then.
Metro Goldwyn Mayer, eh? The lion roars, and you're in. Great.
United Artists. I think you were talking Bond films, and that was it. You just knew that was the start of Bond.
Yeah. But
so it's a mystery now, but I don't think that matters as to what the quality of the film's going to be anymore,
No, not at all. And I think, Netflix and Amazon Prime. I mean, I've got Amazon Prime as well, and some of their originals are some of the best things on there, but also some of their originals completely suck as well.
Yeah.
I've tried Hunters on Amazon Prime, which stars Al Pacino, and it's Jordan Peele's concept, and it's about Nazi hunters, and I'm like, right, okay, well, I'm going to give this a whirl, definitely. And after halfway through the third episode, I started to think, do you know what? I'm going to have to admit defeat on this, because this is a bit shit. And it's not that it's shit. It's good enough to keep your attention and to hold you until like 3 episodes in. But it's not until 3 episodes in that you go, hang on, tonally, this is all over the place. Do you know what I mean? It's like, because it's like, 1 minute there's like, oh, here's the cast, here are the people who have formed the group of the hunters. And it turns into a Tarantino kind of introduction of the characters. And you're thinking, hang on, they're supposed to be hunting real knife Nazis. What the fuck? There's no room for jokes in here.
Well, maybe they've gone down the Inglorious Bastards route with it.
Do you know what?
By the sound of that. But...
Yes. Do you know what? You have absolutely hit the nail on the head. It is the TV series where Hitler lives. Do you know what I mean? It's no, you're absolutely right, because I thought, am I like inventing this? So I went on IMDb to have a look at some of the reviews, and a lot of the reviews were just saying it's like the Nazis that they're hunting down, they've made them up, and it's like, and then they've made these Nazi officers. They've made these officers up, and then they've made up the crimes that they committed. And it's like, do you really need to make up Nazi crimes? Weren't the ones that happened bad enough?
I'm laughing at you, not the.
No, I know what you mean. Yeah, but it's like, do you know what I mean? It's like, what the fucking hell are you doing?
Yeah.
It's like you've fallen between two stools, It's like it's either about they're either Nazi hunters who are hunting down Nazis, or they're not. But hunting down, made up characters, hunting down made up Nazis, it's just, the whole thing is just bollocks. And there's one person on IMDb who's reviewed it and said, I lived through the Holocaust, and this is the most offensive thing I have ever seen. And I was like, oh, dude, you did not survive Nazi war camps to watch this shit. You really didn't. But, but then again, I'll let Jordan Peele off because his reimagining of The Twilight Zone is fucking excellent.
I have it. What platform's that on, Howard?
That's on Sky.
Oh, right. Well, I've got access at the moment. That's in me, rotating subscriptions,
Oh, right. Okay. Well, yeah, it's just search Twilight Zone. I think there's 2 series of it.
Right. I mean, I don't know much about the guy other than I enjoy Get Out and Us. I really enjoyed them, especially Get Out.
Yes.
But I don't know much else of his, where he came from, and he's obviously got a kind of, he's hot at the moment,
Yeah. Well, it's from Keen and Peele, who were just like a brilliant US comedy double act. But yeah, I mean that's a whole other. We're now going to start talking about something neither of us have actually seen. So let's forget that for a minute.
Speaking of double acts, since our last episode, I was challenged to watch The Last Boy Scout.
Oh right, okay, yeah, I think. Yeah.
So I watched it last week, and that was since we went before after we spoke, I think. But we'll talk about the film in a moment, but one thing it sort of led me to was thinking about this whole genre of films that kind of used to exist, and they probably still are, because you recently had the Bad Boys for Life. Never seen any of that trilogy at all either, but the buddy movie, the kind of buddy cop movie.
Ah, yeah.
Because in the 80s, I mean, 48 Hours, I absolutely loved at the time.
Yeah.
And Lethal Weapon.
Yeah. And
obviously, again, that Last Boy Scout falls into that kind of cop, brings in a guy who isn't a cop to kind of help, he's kind of involved with the plot of the, whatever crimes happened, this guy's got to get, he's assisting the police.
And then there's a movie that I would put into that category that isn't necessarily cops, but is the obvious Midnight Run.
Oh yes, great. Yeah,
well, that's a classic. And what is it? Is it an action film? Is it a buddy movie? Is it a road movie? Is it a comedy? I mean, the answer is it's all of them.
That was when De Niro sort of, he probably wasn't doing method and kind of vented it kind of the roles that he kind of does nowadays, I guess. But he was doing comedy that wasn't. Because if you think about like Scorsese's the king of comedy, he's being funny, but he's that's De Niro still acting in the method fashion kind of,
Yes,
he's funny because that's what the story is, but he's not De Niro kind of having fun, if you know what I mean.
He's playing the part of a comedian, and he's basically seriously playing a comedian.
Yeah, but that was one of the first De Niro films where you don't have to like the other films, which might be a bit boring for people who just like kind of action movies or something. They're not going to enjoy Raging Bull, but they're going to, this was in that category again with the 48 Hours and all that stuff. It was a great film.
Yeah, and a film that's similar to that as well is Brazil. I remember, funnily enough, the words of Paul Neary always stick in my mind when I watch Brazil, which I just remember Paul saying, "Oh, Brazil, it's great. Robert De Niro's in it, and it's great because he isn't Robert De Niro." and he's like, "Yeah, I get what you mean. It's like Midnight Run."
And Brazil predates Midnight Run, of course. You know, it's one of them films that's never been massively on my radar. You know. Yeah,
but it's just De Niro not doing the De Niro performance. That he's known for. But look, to go back to what you were saying, you're right. Yeah, that's sort of the buddy cop movie. It really was in the 80s. That was how you made your money, wasn't it? It was like 3 Beverly Hills Cop. We'll have 3 Lethal Weapons. Anyone else? Well, let's make some of these movies. And sort of Last Boy Scout kind of fits into that kind of vein, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And it had the 80s tropes of the kind of saxophone music and the, blues licks and things like that. There'd be like a one-liner followed by a blues lick.
Yeah.
It had a lot of that. So I did enjoy it, but it's like a lot of things, you kind of got attached to them in the day, and then they stick with you, Whereas I could take it or leave it now, obviously. But had I been a huge fan in the day, like Die Hard maybe, you kind of retain that fandom,
Yeah, well, and let's face it, the 80s also was the era of somebody having a pair of running shoes found in a closet. And it was there was either mud on those shoes that was from a particular area, or those shoes, or those were the shoes that left a track behind, or left a footprint behind in someone's garden.
Those shoes have got a magnesium deposit from the magnesium plant where we found the body of the dealers.
I mean, in the 80s, all cops needed to do was, like, if there's anyone that's under suspicion, go around all of their houses, look in all of their closets, and it'll be the one who's got running shoes with some mud on. It was fucking them. Right?
Hey, that reminds me of, we talked about it last time, a fantastic film, but I'm sure there was something to do with solving the crime in the film Destroyer, with Nicole Kidman.
Oh, now that's a film.
There was something to do with, again, it was like, there'd be a fence and then an embankment going down to a river or the LA River or something, and there was, it just brings it back. That there was something, that there was some kind of evidence that was as simple as that involved.
But the thing about Destroyer is the way that the narrative is the timeline is broken, and you don't realise that it's broken. So it kind of plays tricks on you, and it's kind of like a directorial cheat, isn't it? It's like because you're putting a twist in for the audience that isn't actually a twist. All you've done is rearrange the timeline of the movie.
Yes. But when the penny drops as an audience, it's gratifying. It's good, isn't it?
Well, the thing is because it only happens once, and that is and that is the way to use it, because then you'll forgive it, and it's great. And Destroyer with Nicole Kidman, she's amazing in it. She's never looked so rough. She just looks like she lives in the boot of a car. I mean, she looks horrific. And she's brilliant in it. She's absolutely brilliant in it. And I have to say, she's got to be one of the... Who would have thought that, going back to the 80s again, who would have thought that, one of Tom Cruise's many wives...
Yeah. I don't know if it would piss him off. I mean, she's a far better actor. Not Cruise, because we've discussed this before. Huge fan, and he's one of the guys from that era who still makes really quality action films anyways, doesn't he?
Yeah.
But for accolades for, talking about someone's performance, she far outshines him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
In acting chops, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, this is, this is a woman who starred in The Others, in Destroyer, she's played so many wide and varying roles. She's absolutely phenomenal. She really is.
Last week I watched, again, a film, I probably saw it on release, but have no recollection. So it was Tom Cruise film A Few Good Men.
Ah, right, yeah.
Right. Now...
You can't handle the truth.
Well, this is it. I thought, you know what? Like, this would be much better now if they used actors like Sarah Paulson and stuff like that in it.
Yeah.
I just thought, here you've got, like, Demi Moore and Cruise, who were, like, mega stars of the 80s, and, you know, definitely the right cast at the time to get a box office draw. But I just, you know what, it's not even that they're bad, it's just, like, the way films were directed then and stuff like that.
Yes.
It doesn't have the realism of if you did it now as a TV show with some, you know, less well-known people. It would be, you know, you would just accept the truth far easier, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Well, do you know what? I'm for some reason I'm reminded of Eddie Murphy's character in Bowfinger, when it says, and what about this line of dialogue? You know, say what's your problem, Cliff? You know, and then I push him over the edge. And what's the point of that? He's saying, well, his name's Cliff, and you're pushing him over the edge of a cliff. And he goes, no, that requires too much thought. You know, we're trying to make a movie, not a film. and I just thought, do you know, when you were talking there, I was just thinking, yeah, that's exactly it. It's a movie, whereas opposed to now, it would be made as a film.
Yeah. Sorry, like a mini-series or something like that, maybe.
Yeah.
Sorry, I know what you mean. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, because
film is a piece of art and a movie being a big eating popcorn and a big entertainment thing.
Yes. Yeah. So you've got the big scene in the...
You're right.
You're
right.
And you've got Jack Nicholson fucking shouting his, you go down on the truth and all that, and it's like, oh, and it's so overdone. It's so hammed up.
What I realised, though, is Jack Nicholson probably rocked up there for maybe 2 days of work.
Yeah.
And would have walked away with, you know, I don't know,
millions
finances. But, you know, it's like Marlon Brando and Superman. You know, he's getting paid a fortune, getting the same money or more than Cruise, but he's only in the film for like 10 minutes. 2 scenes, anyway.
Yeah.
I think 2 or 3 scenes. Yeah, but having never seen it, you're aware of that. You can't handle the truth.
Yes. It's funny though, isn't it? Because like the 80s is rapidly turning into the era that musically and cinematically, it's really, really not aged well. And stuff that came out before that, you know, the 70s, that a lot of the stuff in the 70s has aged well, and a lot of stuff in the 90s has aged well.
Yes.
But the 80s, what the fuck happened?
I think, you know, films, certainly the films I like from the 70s, but I've only got to know them from discovering people in the 80s and then looking back at their earlier films, like Pacino and De Niro and Jack Nicholson, Gene Hackman, you know. So films like Serpico and Taxi Driver and The French Connection, they all have a gritty realism, which is more in keeping with films like Destroyer nowadays.
Yes.
Whereas the 80s went for all the bombast and the kind of cheesy music, stuff like that. That dates the films in a bad way.
Yeah. Yeah. I know exactly what you mean, yeah. It is...
When I say bad, I don't know, but it keeps them trapped in that bubble, you know.
Yes, yeah. And we're not saying, you know, all of the movies. Because, I mean, you know, there's some great movies in the 80s, like, you know, like fucking Ghostbusters and shit like that, which is just,
you
know, which is legendary. But as soon as you get into the 90s, you've got you've got the Terminator movies, you've got Tarantino starting to, you know, put movies out, and all of a sudden, you're back to, these are quality. And you look at the 80s, and like we said, there's 6 movies in the Lethal Weapon and Beverly Hills Cop franchise alone.
Yeah. Which you forget that even exists. I'm like, there's a Beverly Hills Cop 3? Have I seen it? You know, or 4? I don't know. Lethal Weapon, what's this? You know, I don't remember all these sequels, but they exist. But then, as in most cases, 1 or 2 were decent, and then they kind of, each time they're losing points, you know. But
a prime example of a franchise, right, that started well and then but it was just like there was no hope for it as soon as the second movie came out. First Blood, what a film!
Yeah,
what a film!
Yeah.
And it's a proper film. I mean, it's a film, you know.
But it throws you now as to why. I mean, yes, I understand the appeal of Stallone being the superstar that he was, but I don't understand why they went for the concept of making them less and less believable or more over the top, whereas the first one could be true.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
You know what I mean? It was like all of the sequences, the work. Yeah. Not many people are going to jump off a cliff into a pine tree and all the rest of it, but it is believable.
Yeah.
The next ones are just completely, here he is killing like 50 people and stuff like that. They just got more and more, kind of mad as they went along, I guess, but the quality went down,
Yeah.
I mean, I enjoyed these ones that he's done, The Last Blood.
Yeah.
Kind of got a bunch of, Mexican gang after him or something. I enjoyed it for its daftness that it is, yet it's so far removed from First Blood, which, is still an excellent film, I'm sure, and I do own it. I need to rewatch.
Oh mate, I've rewatched that in lockdown, and it's such great. I mean, and our guitarist Paul is a huge fan. In fact, we watched that together, like back in the fucking 90s when I went and stayed with him, and that is just an awesome movie. And it still stands up now. And like you said, it could be true. It could, and how you go from that to to the cartoon follow-ups is beyond me, because that is it's a serious movie, and the topics in it as well. The topics in it are that this guy. You see him. He falls apart at the end. He's saying, this guy fresh back from Vietnam, and he's not even allowed to walk through a town. Yeah,
disgusting. And even the little bits, like he goes to visit his friend, and his friend's caught cancer because of the Agent Orange or some, the chemicals they were using there. There's all these little political, things that ring true about what happened. And like you're saying to the veterans as well, they come back and it's just like, oh, who's this guy? He's wearing an army jacket. Get out of town. We don't want you here. Not like he is a hero who served his country. Like, we'll feed water here. Do you want a job? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and he's quite clearly suffering from PTSD. You know what I mean? It's like
absolutely, yeah.
It's almost like an anti-war film. It's like, if you go to war and fight for your country, this is what happens when you come home.
Yeah. A totally different topic away from films, Howard, but it fits into this, and it's an interesting thing that I never knew. Is a couple of years ago we went to Japan, and I said to my wife, I said, this is strangest because we're in massive cities, and I haven't seen any homeless people. And I was worried because I thought, I am worried that like maybe, the government's so strict with people that, the kind of homeless people that get, put in a camp or some kind of, mistreatment from the government that way to keep the city clean. I don't know, right? But it's very surprising, you come off a railway station in the capital city and you don't see any homeless people or indeed get, asked for money or help or whatever.
Yeah.
But so when I got back, I kind of looked into has anyone written anything about this? Is the YouTube, it's an easy way to find out. So on YouTube, someone was discussing it, and they said, and it's really interesting, that there's other things to do with drug problems and things like that, or less, there's less of it there. But the number one thing is, when you think about a lot of homeless people, and certainly in the States, at a certain time, the Japanese haven't fought in a conflict, haven't had a conflict since the Second World War. So there isn't anyone in that country who's suffering from PTSD from ex-military.
Right. Wow.
Which, which, when you think of John Rambo, and he's as they call him, a drifter, he's a guy with mental health problems who, he's travelling down, he can't get work, he's living kind of rough,
Yeah.
And, but that is definitely something that was massive in the 70s, people coming back from Vietnam. Yeah,
I guess that plays into it big time.
Yeah.
Well, I know when around sort of 2000, when I was in, I lived in San Francisco for a little bit, and fucking hell, I mean, I was doing stand up at the time, and I thought I can't go onto a stage in San Francisco and start doing stuff about homeless people because they'll fucking kill me, being a Brit. But it was like, you do realise that you know the underneath of motorways. Yeah, that's not supposed to be a city. Yeah, there's not supposed to be hundreds of people living underneath motorway flyovers. That's not what they're there for.
No. There's a place, Skid Row, and it's been recently on TV. I can't remember why, but I saw it on TV recently. I think it was to do with COVID, saying how are they protecting people in who are less likely to go and visit the doctors and stuff like that in the States, certainly because they haven't got the healthcare. There's something like 6,000 people live in this area, and I think there's a fence around it type of thing. It's almost like a city within a city, but it's all just camps and shelters, the homemade, in the downtown of Los Angeles. It's madness. 6,000 people. I think it's the biggest in the world to have a site like that,
Yeah, that is.
Except for obviously some, camp where there's migrants or people, refugees, and that element,
Yes.
Mad.
Yeah, totally. And we who would have thought that we would have gone from we'd have gone from First Blood.
This week on Politics with Howard Smith.
We've got Geordie, US homeless expert. Gary Foalle has come on to talk about the time he went to Japan. Oh, dear. Well, look, I owe you a thank you. Because you, whilst I said watch Block Island Sound, you told me to watch Cold Pursuit, and any comedy that makes you laugh out loud when you're watching it on your own, that is a comedy. And Cold Pursuit, fantastic.
Would you see it's difficult to describe it if you said what type of film is this? I describe it as a comedy, but I don't think everyone. I know what you would laugh at maybe, but I think
it's a black comedy. It's a black comedy.
Yeah, that's what I call it. Yeah.
Because there's, and this isn't giving too much away, but somebody who starts killing people and disposing of them the same way, like it's just nothing. There is humour in there, but it depends who you are as to whether you're going to find that funny or not. But there is straight out comedy in it as well.
Yeah.
There's clearly stuff in it. Like, for instance, at one point, a child is kidnapped, and the child is almost happy to be kidnapped, but not in a. It's not comedically done. It's not played for laughs.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it's like, this child wanting a story read to them before they go to bed, and they're clearly like they're in their element, and it's just loads of laughs where you don't expect them, but it's a black comedy. It's the main subject is very serious. It is violent, which will, I think a lot of people's sensibilities will probably stop them finding that amusing to start with, but I thought it was brilliant, and Liam Neeson playing kind of against type and kind of not, which is he's basically his back's against the wall, but it's not Liam Neeson from Taken, he's just a dad trying to do right by his son, and not and again not in a Taken kind of way. He's just a bloke.
I mean, strange, someone had recommended the original, which I think it's Denmark or Norway, a Scandinavian film, In Order of Disappearance. So I watched it, really enjoyed it, and literally 10 minutes later, I was like cruising through the, just Amazon or something, and Cold Pursuit came up. But it had the little synopsis, 50 words, whatever, and it said, guy with snowplow. And I went, hold on a minute. That's the same effing film. So, as you do, IMDb, same director, writer, everything. He literally just had some success with this film in his home country and made a US remake. But I couldn't believe how, he hasn't changed it whatsoever, I don't think. It's even the name of the town, the names of the characters, you can see how he's Americanized the same thing. You know what I mean? He's just changed it enough so that it's got an American ring to it rather than like it sounds like a European word. But I recommend you watch just to compare it, really, for your thoughts. It's so
I'll
similar,
do that.
But
I'll do that because I made you watch Last Boy Scout. I think I've got the better deal here, so I will definitely do that. I think,
but looking at the poster of Cold Pursuit, it just looked like Liam Neeson. He's just living it off the Taken thing, where he's become this popular action hero for the over 50s, and it's certainly not. It's just not another one of those films, which I've enjoyed most of these films that he's done, like the one where he's Air Marshal or something like that.
Yeah.
With Julianne Moore, I believe, on the plane, I think.
Yeah. It's one of the only films he's not running in because it's a plane.
Yeah.
So
yes.
But everything else is running in.
I've always enjoyed him in these things, but Cold Pursuit just looked like another one. Well, it's certainly not. It's a totally different film.
No, and I tell you what, I've rewatched recently. If I don't know how we've ended up on the Liam Neeson oeuvre, but fuck it, let's go with it. I watched The Grey the other day again, and that's a classic.
I was going to say I was waiting to see if you said you didn't like it because I enjoyed it.
Oh, yeah. It's great. It's great because the big joke is, isn't it? It's like you saw The Grey and you think, fuck me, is this like subtitled Liam Neeson Wolf Puncher? Do you know what I mean? He's going to be having scraps with wolves and like knocking them out and making jackets out of their heads and stuff. But it's just about a guy struggling to survive in the wilderness where the wolves, it's their home and it's not his home, and it's brutal, but just brilliantly done.
I watched another couple of films in a similar vein, like surviving in, an Arctic sort of environment after a plane crash, which I thought were good as well. One was Idris Elba and Kate Winslet. I think it's called, I don't know. It might have been called Over the Mountain or something like that, but it wasn't. But The Mountain Between Us, maybe it was called.
Right, yeah.
I'm not sure, but it was pretty good, for the Elba. And another one, but this one's fresh in my mind, so I can tell you what this is called. There's another one called Arctic with Mads Mikkelsen that I watched a couple of weeks ago.
Now I've seen it, but sorry, I know the film you mean, but I haven't seen it.
Not to be mixed up with another film that he's in called Polar, which is a totally different film about assassins, which I also watched in the last couple of weeks. So there you go.
Ah, right, okay. Well, so would you recommend the Mads Mikkelsen one?
Arctic, I think so, but I wouldn't put them in the same league as the Cold Pursuit, though.
Right? No. But I mean, if it's worth watching, I'll give it a watch.
Yeah, not a bad watch. No.
Yeah, because sorry, go on.
Go on, sorry. No, please.
We're just all over the shop here. We've ended up down fucking Liam Neeson Lane for some reason. Do you know what I mean? That's like, Jesus, how did we end up driving down here? Quick, let's reverse.
I swear, Dan, that's because all these films merge into one. So you go, okay, so you've got this thing, the guy in the pink, that's the wolf. Hold on a minute. That's about 4 films now mixed up. There's a film with Jeffrey Wright. Is that his name?
Not sure.
He's in Westworld, amongst other things.
All right.
He's and he goes hunting for some wolves that have killed somebody's kid or something.
Ah, right, okay,
All these things blend into one.
They do, don't they? But do you know what? You've thrown something in there that I wanted to talk about, and that was Westworld. Which,
yeah, well, there you go, yeah.
Which for me, the first series is some of the best TV I think I've ever seen. That first series absolutely had me just totally transfixed. The first episode, I think, is just one of the best episodes ever. Because I just love the fact that at the very beginning, she's an android. She doesn't know she's an android.
Mm-hmm.
And at the very beginning, almost the first scene, is a fly walking across an eyeball.
Mm-hmm.
And it pulls out and it's her and she's not bothered. And that's the first scene. And the very last scene, a fly lands on her arm and she swats it.
Mm-hmm.
And for everything that happens in between, to be bookended with those scenes, you're just like, oh, fuck me, this is going to be good.
Yeah.
You know?
I was going to say is, I think, production-wise, and we were talking about Ratchet earlier, that Westworld, it just looks absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And you can tell that from as soon as the title sequence starts. It's like quality.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you've gone off it a little bit. Just find it a bit confusing, but that's just me. I mean, some people revel in that.
No, I've got to say, I found, I thought Series 2 was a massive letdown. And what we were saying earlier about it's not a twist if you play with the timeline. And that whole series, that's all it was. It was just, it was that there were no twists. It was just the fact that you were being shown things out of order. And I'm sorry, but fucking anyone can do that. Anyone can take the whole narrative storyline of like 11 hours and go, right, okay, let's chop them up and put them in different places so it confuses people and works as a twist. And it's like, well, no, it doesn't. And I was really disappointed. There was one episode that I enjoyed. Other than that, I found it to be really, it was just like an exam, basically. And by the third series came around, it's done the classic, isn't it? Which is, you know, and this is probably a topic for conversation as well, which is basically the series has outgrown the original concept. So it's like, it's called Westworld. Well, the minute you leave Westworld, it's now a different TV program, isn't it?
Yes.
And the other TV program it's become, it could be anything.
I love the film as well, though.
Yeah.
The original.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's a classic, isn't it? It's an absolute classic.
Yeah. Loved it.
And I love what they did with the first series, but Series 2, really annoying. Series 3, just kind of meh, really. Just sort of like,
do you know what? Am I oblivious to this? But I don't even remember if there is a Series 3 that I've seen. Or have I? I don't know. I'm up to date, I believe.
I thought there was a...
I can't remember.
Right,
you could be totally right, and you could be completely right. I just don't remember.
This is brilliant, isn't it? This is like, you know, you've tuned in to listen to a podcast where two old men can't remember what they've seen.
Senile Fenwell.
Yeah, welcome to Movie Senile Bollocks.
Yeah, I mean, how would I love season 37 of The Simpsons, you know?
All right, calm down. Right, okay, so let's have a look. Where are we? Okay.
I want to tell you a series that I know you won't have seen because you don't have Apple TV.
Well, that doesn't mean I won't have seen it, mate.
No, you should check it. But I've been enjoying this now. I don't think it's of the same quality as something like Westworld or, you know, Game of Thrones or something, you know.
Yes.
On that scale, you know, production and all the rest of it. But there's a series called For All Mankind. And Series 2 is still on weekly now, and it's coming up to its end. But I haven't watched Series 2 yet. But explain the concept, and this is in the trailer, so I'm not spoiling it, is the space race at the end of the 60s. The Russians land on the moon before the United States.
Right.
the States aren't far behind. They get there, a week later or what have you. But this show is all about the space race and the politics involved and the technology and astronauts. But what they do, they write in, it's all a lot of fiction, but they write in bits of history, as in like Watergate and these things happen within the show.
Yeah.
And there's real characters like Neil Armstrong, who wasn't the first man on the moon, he's the first American on the moon, right?
Yeah.
And they even bring in the Von Braun, who the Nazi who's helped build the rockets, but obviously his past comes to catch up with him as well. That is pretty correct to have the Nazi, working for the government and stuff. So there's a lot of real life facts in it, but it's obviously this kind of action stroke drama of these astronauts, and there's the two factions on the moon rather than the Americans. But series 2 is going to be based in the Reagan era with the space shuttle going through the 80s and onwards. But I loved it. But it hasn't got, maybe the acting chops or some of the values of some of the higher budget shows, but it's still enjoyable.
Yeah,
and because I'm interested in that sort of history as well,
Well, I'll have a look for it. I'll have a look for it. And here's the news. The news is that season 3 of Westworld came out in March 2020.
Holy shit! Well, I must have watched it then.
Yeah, you must have. Well, and that really
shows you how good I think it is.
Yeah, exactly. Season 4 starts in 2022, apparently.
Right.
But season 3 jumped the shark early doors, I think. And
can I just ask, was season 3 the introduction of Aaron Paul in the show?
Yes, I think it was. Yeah.
Right, I've seen it. Right,
I
thought that was season 2.
Yeah,
there you go.
Well, there you go. It wasn't that memorable, and what it leads me on to is something I've started doing now, which is I've stopped falling for that sounds like a really interesting premise TV series, be it on Netflix, on Amazon, or whatever, because what I'm doing now is I'm looking at the premise and going, has that got legs? Can that last more than 3 series? Do you know what I mean? Is it gonna? Because I've made that mistake so many times now, like Designated Survivor on Netflix, which is Kiefer Sutherland, the makers of 24. Kiefer Sutherland playing this guy who's the only member of the government left after the White House is bombed. That happens in the first 5 minutes, so it's not a spoiler. It's the whole concept.
Yeah.
And so he was about 58th in line to be president, but all the other 57 have been wiped out in one bomb. So all of a sudden, a bloke whose Secret Service code name was not worth bothering or almost dead or whatever it was, right? Is now president. And it's like, oh wow. And it was great for about 18 episodes. And then it just completely runs out of steam. And I've started sort of being a lot more circumspect about people. The more outrageous the premise makes me feel like, that's great, and that hooks you and it brings you in, but they run out of what to do after 2 or 3 seasons, and then it just dies.
Well, see, I almost like things when I find out that, oh great, it's only 3 seasons. I have to watch it then, because I don't have to invest all this time.
Yeah.
But then again, it could be that the end of 3 seasons is because it's been dropped, because it's basically series 3 was rubbish,
Yes, yeah. And
it's a difficult one. But a show that has overstayed its welcome, in my opinion, and many others, but obviously it has its fact, The Walking Dead.
Oh, fucking hell.
Now, I'm tied in, and I'm still watching it, but it's been dreadful. But I'll see it through, but that's just what I mean is, when you put so much into it, you don't want to stop.
Yeah.
But it pisses you off,
It became The Talking Dead, and more bore and less gore. I was like, nah, I'm done with this. I left after about season 3 or 4. I mean, it's still gutting.
But it was fantastic in those early days, Howard.
Oh yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
Oh, it was brilliant. Well, Frank Darabont's first series is way up there with some of the best TV you'll see. But that's well and truly overstayed its welcome, without a doubt. Have you and one series that, because I know you like a bit of time travel. The Travellers on Netflix.
Never seen it.
There's 4 series.
Yeah.
And it's got a proper ending. And it was the first 2 they made 2 series, and then it got dropped, and there was such an outcry. Another company picked up and made series 3. And they made season 3 and 4, and that's kind of it. But it's really, really, and I've gone on about it on the podcast before, but
yeah,
I really, really rate it. It's not amazing sci-fi. There's 34 episodes, right? But it gets over 8 on IMDb, which is pretty good going. And it's just really, really well done, because it's 3 seasons. And because it's time travel, but they never leave the present day. So people go forward in time, and people appear from further in, but they never move. You're always in the present day, and that's where their mission is. And that's why it's a different take on it, but also it's just so well written that any flaws that you get in time travel are all covered. And sometimes you'll be like a little ahead of it, thinking, hang on, there's going to be a problem, when, oh no, they've beaten me to it. Damn. And it's all really well done. Great characters, bit of humour, but it is, and I know this is going to sound stupid, but it's done as if this really happened, you could imagine it happening like this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
we'll look into it. Travellers.
Yeah, on Netflix. Travellers, definitely worth a go. Definitely worth a go.
A couple of nights ago, I put a film on which I've had in a list for a long time, but never got round to it, and thought, is it not? Is it going to be good? Completely different to what I imagined. So the film, don't know if you've seen it, is Predestination, starring Ethan Hawke.
Yes, I have seen it. I think I saw it not far off when it came out.
Yeah. Well, I thought this film was going to be like a time cop, action thing. The guy goes back, back forward in time, a bit like Looper or was it Looper? Yeah. So I Minority Report. I was thinking that on a lower budget.
Yeah.
And yet, it's this completely different film.
Yeah.
And for that reason, I quite enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, it's he's a weird one, Ethan Hawke, because he's like, he is really good, and he's usually really good in whatever he's in.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he's, for me, his finest moment has got to be, oh, fucking hell, why would I forget the name of this? The cop movie with Denzel.
Is it a science fiction film?
No, the cop movie with
Training Day.
Training Day.
Fantastic film.
What a movie.
Yeah, brilliant, isn't it? Yeah.
Just fantastic. But, Predestination is really good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no,
interesting. Yeah.
And funnily enough, if you haven't seen it, there's a Netflix movie called Shadow of the Moon.
I think I have. But if I did, that was one of the first things. I don't know what the name. I'll look into it. I'll have to see.
Yeah, because there's no sort of big stars in it.
Yeah.
But the biggest star, if you like, is Boyd Holbrook, who you're probably not going to be able to bring to mind.
Right.
He's a cop. He's a cop, and his partner is Michael C. Hall, Dexter.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that is really worth checking out. That's a good Netflix movie, in my opinion. It is a good Netflix.
I'm writing it down, Howard. I'm writing it down. And Travellers. Right.
Yeah, Travellers and In the Shadow of the Moon.
Yeah.
I'll
have a look.
Yeah, they're both time traveling. And let's face it, that's what we're all looking for in our movies at the moment. We want to travel to a time where we're not in fucking lockdown and having to spend all of our spare moments watching telly.
Mind you, when all this ends and you go like, oh shit, I've only watched one film this week. I'm like, I wish I wish this shit would break out so I can catch up with Netflix. It's what do you do?
Yeah, I know. Well, it's hard to remember what life was like before all of this happened.
Something I'd say, a thing I was thinking about, and I don't know if we discussed it before, or whether on podcast or just on a private call, but back in the day, you go, have you seen this film First Blood? You've got to see it, and then you'd go like, all right, I'm going to go down the video shop, and they had one copy, and you would reserve it, and you maybe get it 2 weeks later for the weekend,
Yeah.
Whereas now you can just go, oh, have you seen this? Now I can watch that film tonight if it's still on.
Yeah.
It's so when you get a film that's sort of trending, or a series that's trending, like everybody's watching the same thing. It's quite interesting because I think yes, everyone would have watched Jaws when it was on TV because you never had a video recorder, maybe, right? But then post that, once the video era came in, you kind of were all watching different things, and then now it's gone full circle again where, yes, there's so much stuff that there's no way we've both seen the same, everything the same, but we can talk about something and we can access it and almost watch it on the same weekend or whatever. It's kind of interesting in that way.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, you think, you hang up, I hang up, and I can go and watch that Apple TV series that you recommended.
Yeah.
And you can watch the first episode of Travellers by the time I've finished fucking saving the file of our conversation.
Yeah. Why I got Apple, was to watch Greyhound, and then when I was in there, I thought, well, I'm getting my $5 worth. What else is on here? Not a lot.
Greyhound, what's that?
But that's the Tom Hanks movie where he says, "Command of a submarine."
Yeah. That's a directorial debut as well, isn't it?
Is it? Oh, yes. Sorry, I think you might be right, Howard. I think you might be right.
Yeah,
it's not bad. It's good.
It's all right, isn't it? It's all right. It's one of those movies where you watch it and you go, "Well, that passed the time," and I'm glad I've watched it, but I wouldn't necessarily say to somebody else that they should watch it.
Yeah, there was a good film I came across on there called The Banker, which is it Anthony Mackie?
Oh,
Anthony J. Mackie. He's the guy with the wings, the Falcon in the Marvel movie.
Yes, yeah. He's on a bit of a hot streak at the moment because he's Behind the Wire. That's another good Netflix film.
Yes.
He's the star.
I watched that. Yeah, I enjoyed it. Yeah. Outside the Wire, was it?
That's it. Yes,
yeah.
I really enjoyed that.
So there's kind of him and Michael B. Jordan came on kind of rising stars at the same time.
Yes.
So often I mix up their work, but they're both very good. But there's a film on there called The Banker.
I lost you there for a minute, mate. You say there's The Banker.
Yeah, so The Banker. So it's a true story about a couple of African American guys who, because of racism and segregation and stuff, they kind of exempt from doing certain business dealings in the states that they live in, At the time, it's in the 60s.
Oh, I've seen it.
Yeah, and they set up like a property kind of empire or something like that, don't they?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought it was lovely because obviously it's come around on the back of the sort of Black Lives Matter. There's been a lot of African American cinema kind of pushing these stories out there, and it's like Hidden Figures. It's one of these great little stories that you never knew about, but it's fascinating and shocking as well when you discover the truth behind it. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it as well, and funnily enough, I'd forgotten all about it until you mentioned it. Yeah,
it's probably because it's tucked away on Apple TV. It's kind of like the streaming platform that less people are kind of bought into,
Yeah.
Mostly because there's not enough stuff on there. is the reason. But yeah, a lovely film. Like, it was really good.
Yeah, no, I remember. Do you know what? It's one of those films where you said, "Oh, The Banker," and I was thinking, "Oh, I haven't seen this," and then you start describing, and go, "Oh no, oh shit, I have seen it."
It sounds like a Polish assassin movie, The Banker. You know, it could be anything.
Yeah, it's like filmed in Slovenia for like £1 million.
Yeah.
But you're right. Is it Anthony Mackie? He's in Synchronic as well. Oh, now there's a movie we
that rings a bell as well.
Well, that's because playing opposite him is our friend Jamie Dornan from The Fall.
Right. I love him in The Fall, but the jury's still out because of I've never seen it because of he's probably been typecast, but because of the 50 Shades of Grey.
Oh, right, okay, but you've seen The Fall, right?
Yeah, just recently, yes.
Yeah, because I thought we spoke about that on the Corona Diaries last week. Well,
and obviously, like most people, absolutely loved it.
Yeah. I mean, it's properly twisted that, and no, he's in Synchronic, and it's him and Anthony Mackie, and again, that's a different take on time travel that I haven't seen before. Which is definitely worth checking out. I don't know how we've ended up on fucking time travel. I don't know why that.
I don't know. I'll tell you what, we're talking about time travel. I've not watched Doctor Who since Tom Baker, so I don't know.
Oh dear, yeah. I've dipped in into bits and pieces of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
I saw a bit when Matt Smith was the Doctor. I've seen a bit. With Vet, but I haven't watched any. For me, it was it's just been a bit sort of, I don't know. It just feels a bit of a kids program now. Whenever I see it, and I'm just like, yeah, this is not really. Yeah. It's not how I like my sci-fi and my time travel. But there you go.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, I was just that's taken me into sort of alien territory. And I was thinking about the Netflix movie. Is it Alienation? With and it's Natalie Portman stars in it.
Oh, Annihilation.
Annihilation, that was it.
Do you know what? That looked incredible, and Alex Garland, I believe, was behind it. And I mean, not many people I don't think a lot of people I suppose who didn't enjoy the film The Beach, but I actually liked it a lot. Which I believe he wrote a novel of that Danny Boyle film. Yeah. But Ex Machina I thought was superb.
Oh, I love it.
Which I think he directed that, which then led on to Annihilation, which I thought I'd really like. But you know what it was? It was one of those when you put a film on, it's late at night and you're kind of a bit tired, so you're not taking it in. You know, there's complex plot or there's some kind of subtle something happening, maybe he's not picking up on it, and it was just one of those films that it kind of just went over my head. That I kind of seen it, but I don't remember it very well. But what's your thoughts on it?
I really enjoyed it. There's some. I've seen it a couple of times now as well, and it's brutal. There's some horrific scenes in it.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Some real proper scenes that reminded me of The Thing, actually.
Yeah.
And there's one of the most shocking scenes in it isn't even graphic or violent or anything. And I don't want to say too much about it, but a woman sort of walks away from somebody saying, I'm not sure about that, and walks around the corner, and she follows this woman around the corner, and she's become something else. And it's just weird. It's kind of unnerving, and I really, really enjoyed it. The ending, I think people will go one or two ways in because it is very CGI, but I think it's done well. And ultimately, I mean, the thing is, I really enjoyed it, and that made me watch it again. If you've got those feelings towards it, the way we are now, it's not something you're ever going to go back and go, right, I'm going to give that another go, because there's just so much stuff out there, isn't there?
I think I miss something with it, because it ticks all the boxes, But then for some reason I walked away from it going, like, oh, right. And that does,
Right.
you know, I think it deserves more justice. Like, I don't know, maybe so, yeah. Maybe they should try it.
Yeah, but it's, again, though, it's like, just the way you said that, it's almost like homework, isn't it? It's like, oh,
no,
I should
honestly,
try.
you know, honestly, Howard, often late at night we'll be watching stuff and then realise that we're both asleep. You know, it's who woke up, who snored first. All right, crikey, I've missed 5 minutes of that.
Yeah.
And it's crucial, you know, you
Yes.
know. So there is a good chance that it's just something happened like that.
Well, if there's any of that going on, you're knackered with that film. Yeah.
Which I tell you what, that's the downside of cinemas being closed and that experience being taken away, because when you're stuck in them four walls of the cinema, like, I'm there. You know what I mean?
I went to see Blade Runner 2049. I was in the cinema on my own. Just me.
You're treating it.
Oh man, it was amazing. It was amazing.
That's what it's like on a daily basis for Dr. Dre or Quentin Tarantino, you know. You know what I mean?
And they're the two examples I'd have used as well, definitely.
I used to always use Michael Jackson, but I don't anymore.
Well, no, because he'd be watching it in television. He'd be watching it in bed with the TV at the end of the bed. Let's not go there.
Yeah.
Let's not go there.
No.
But yeah. Well, maybe not. Maybe they're not on their own. Maybe, you know, Quentin's got some mates over, you know, that he hasn't annoyed to death yet. And, you know, Dr. Dre's got some mates over who've been brought round at gunpoint. You know, he's got
I think
Eminem won't shut up while he's trying to watch
smoke.
it.
Yeah. That's it. Like.
Eminem's throwing rhymes at him all the way through it. Fucking shut up! It's not about you.
Yeah.
Should we watch 8 Mile? No.
It's straight out of all he's got is straight out of Compton and 8 Mile. That's all they watch, you know.
Hey, now that's one. Have you watched Straight Outta Compton?
I love music biopics. Like, even if it's something that you're not interested. Like, I watched La Vie en Rose.
Oh, La Vie en Rose, yeah.
Yeah, and I just look fascinated by that. I don't know, I guess because we kind of, in play music and enjoy it anyway. That I love films like that, and you know, they're not always the best, of course, and a lot of times they exaggerate the truth, you know. But I still rarely see one that I don't like, you know.
Yeah.
I even watched one, I think it was called I Am Woman, about Australian songwriter who had some hits.
Oh, yes.
You know, and I forgot her name, but, you know, it's cheesy music. You know, it makes a Carpenter sound extreme, but I enjoyed it. You know, it's... So
what you're saying is you enjoyed Straight Outta Compton?
I really enjoyed Straight Outta Compton, yes.
Really?
Yes.
Really? Because it's.
Did you like it? Did you hate it?
Do you know what? It's there, and every time I see it, I think I've got to watch that. I've got to watch that, and I just I don't know. I just skate on past and watch something else. I think it's Paul Giamatti being in it that is.
Paul Giamatti, yes.
I think him being in it.
It's that typical, you know, story. You know, manager rips off band, which you've seen thousands of times, but I guess it's true. I don't like about it. It's one of those things, you know, you get films that have like a Michael Mann film where every shot's been thought out and it looks amazing.
Yeah. Then
you get other films where they just stick a camera and just go, all right, just do your thing.
Yeah.
It kind of, you know, I don't remember it being very cinematic, you know, but the music and the story, thoroughly enjoyed.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, I'm kicking myself because I like I said, for some reason it's not grabbed me. But I need to, and I know that if I watch it, I know that within sort of 20 minutes I'll be absolutely immersed in it and loving it.
Yeah, I tell you, along that, it's a fictional film, but I really, really enjoy. It's called Hustle and Flow.
Yes, I've seen it.
Yeah, loved it. I forgot it's Terrence Howard. That's right. Yeah, really enjoyed it.
It's early Christian Bale, isn't it?
almost Christian Bale in it.
I don't know. For some reason, that's. Am I imagining that?
I don't know. I think so, but I don't want to swear by it. I've watched it for a long time.
Right. Let me just. I'm getting it up, for us. I might have imagined it. Let me just check.
You know, it's about a rapper. We're not on about a different film.
No, we might. I might be thinking of a different film. And well done, Howard. I am thinking of a different film. So.
Well, then what's your film? Do you know?
No, not a clue.
Well, Hustler and Flow is a fictional story about a wannabe rapper.
Yeah.
He's currently a pimp, but he doesn't want to be a pimp anymore. He wants to be a rapper. It has got an early turn. I think it's ludicrous or common.
Yeah, no, it is ludicrous.
I think it's ludicrous.
It is, yeah.
I really enjoy it because whenever you see people kind of making music and kind of operate in the tech and all that, you kind of know if it's real or not. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, look, yeah, no, it's definitely not him.
Yeah.
But I'll give that a go because I've definitely recognised it. I haven't seen it. I'm thinking of something completely different, and I don't know. I
enjoyed another film. Now there's an actress. There's been a few things that I thought were really good. So this film is about. She's not a typical rapper because she's a kind of overweight, white, kind of working class, like trailer park type of lass, right?
Right.
But she wants to be a rapper. And you recognise the actress when you say it because I think she was in a film called Dumpling,
right?
Which Jennifer Aniston, which is on Netflix. Which again, don't be put off. It's a really good, really enjoyable film. And I forgot the name of this, but she's a rapper. You know, it's not the stereotype of a rapper. You know, and kind of find it difficult getting into the game, like. So it gets kind of booed off at stuff, you know. Yeah. Really good. I'll find out the name of it and send you a link.
Please do.
Good film.
Please do before this goes out, so there's not loads of people on social media saying, "What fucking film was he talking about?" This is the opposite of the movie podcast you want to be listening to, really, isn't it?
I know. I'm not. Just for the viewers, we aren't bloody experts, are we? Like, that's the thing.
It's just two people who really like movies. I mean, you know, I could never put myself up as an expert on movies at all. But well, look, I tell you what, it's we really need to tie this. I need to tie this up now.
We do,
yes.
But
before I go, it's got to be done. Have you seen? Because I can't remember from our phone call last week, but I think you have seen it. The 4 hour and 2 minute Zack Snyder cut of Justice League.
I have, and I think I watched. I don't know if it was before or after our chat, but yes, I watched it. Now, I don't remember, although I did see Justice League probably at the cinema, if not on the TV. But I don't remember it. The only scene I remember is Aquaman in a pub in Iceland or wherever it is. It isn't a pub, it is, but it's a fishing village. You've got a little bit by beer, right?
Yeah.
That's the only scene I remember from the original cut of the film.
Right.
So watching the Snyder cut, I did enjoy it because it was like seeing a film that I'd never seen before.
Yeah.
But I couldn't compare the two versions of the film to tell you what was new, what was old, what was better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me neither.
But it was all right. I mean, I probably enjoyed it, 80% as much as a Marvel one or something.
Yes.
It was all right.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of came away thinking it was all right. Again, I've said it once, I'll say it again. If all of the scenes in slow-mo were filmed at normal speed, the film would be 2.5 hours long. Zack Snyder is clearly somebody that believes that more is more. He's never heard the phrase less is more, or he has and he's completely ruled it out. And yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that I took away from it more than anything else was my surprise at how good a Batman Ben Affleck is. You know,
I did. Yeah, I did think he was good. Yeah, yeah.
I didn't expect to come away from it thinking, "Fuck me, he's really good as Batman." And in the epilogue, there is the exchange with him and the Joker that is basically the best thing in the fucking movie. But you have to wait 3.5 hours for it.
But when you get to that, you think, hold on, is this epilogue leading into a film or a set of films which are never going to happen?
Yeah.
Or are these films going to exist? I don't know, but it was interesting. It was one of those, like, what the hell's just happened?
Yeah.
Where are we now, and what's this timeline, and where are they, and how come, and all that? Yeah,
because they look like they're in some sort of dystopian future.
Like Mad Max, yeah,
and it is very odd, But but also I think it's like ultimately I'm not, you know, I'm not as wedded to those characters as much as I enjoy the Marvel stuff.
No.
And so it was kind of like, it was good. It was good, but I'm definitely not going to watch it again.
No, I mean, I can take or leave any of it now, Howard. I mean, to be honest, I mean, like you say, something like the Block Island sound is far more appealing to us than the colossal, you know, franchise, I think.
Yeah. So do you mean that you're not? Does that mean you're not going to be watching Godzilla versus Kong?
Oh, yeah. No. I mean, you know, it'll pop up because, you know, the Ben Nice rating, it's something I can take the kids. Although in every one of these things, we discussed this before, but again, in Kong Skull Island, someone had to drop the F-bomb a couple of times just because you can in a 12 and get away with it.
Yes.
There was a good F-bomb in there, the Justice League actually, but it was well placed and kind of, I think Affleck said it, you know, it was well placed anyway.
Oh, well, that's the scene I'm talking about. That's properly, because I wasn't expecting it. And when there might be, I think there might be two, and there might be two in it, because that's, right. And I think that's the second one. But I get what you mean. Well, you can't, and Kong Skull Island as well. Shout out for that, bloody, just marvelous film, marvelous, dumb as fuck, dumb as fuck. Yeah. But just fun. It's like I watched Monster Hunter, and I was just like, this is fucking stupid, and I'm really enjoying it. You know? Never
seen that. Hunter, not Monster Hunter.
No, Monster Hunter.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. And it's that rarest of rare things, which is a half decent movie that's based on a computer game.
Oh, right.
And it's just dumb as fuck, but it's bangy, it's smashy, and you know, it's just well done. And I don't know anything about the video game, so you know, I've got no skin in that game.
Yeah. I mean, how would I like no-brainers? You know, films with The Rock, Rampage, San Andreas, things like that. You know, I enjoy them. You know,
Rampage, brilliant. That was just
a quick one there though. Is there's a film, a disaster film from Norway, I think, called The Wave.
Yeah, that rings a bell. I've not seen it.
It's good, and it's a tidal wave. But then I didn't know this. I found another film, and then went, all right, it's the same actor. Hold on a minute, it's a sequel called The Quake. They're both canny.
Really?
Yeah.
Fucking hell! The Wave, the Quake. Sure.
The Wave and the Quake.
So what's the third? It's got to be like the meteorite or something, hasn't it? Or something like that?
I just think it's a tsunami and an earthquake, but they're related anyway. It's the same, like, seismologist or whatever you want to call him.
Yeah. Have you seen?
You know, just by chance he always ends up in the like ground zero for these things. You know.
Have you seen Greenland yet? Then.
Enjoyed it, yeah.
Really enjoyed it. Enjoyed it. It's like, again, it's that rarest of rare things. It's a big dumb Gerard Butler movie that's not big and dumb.
Yeah. But I even watched that one where he controlled the satellites. I enjoyed, you know.
Oh God.
But they're a different it's a different experience, Howard, isn't it? It's like,
yes.
I'm not expecting anything, and I just want to be entertained and not really think about it, you know.
I think the phrase is a popcorn movie, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, you just sit down and go, right, entertain me, blow some shit up, put some people in danger, and then get them out of it. Come on,
I just watched something the other night called Skyfire. It's in Mandarin, but they've got Jason Isaacs in.
Ah, right. Now, yes, I've been meaning to get round to it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's supposed to be pretty mad.
Under 90 minutes as well.
Ah, now that always appeals. Now, I'm trying to think of the movie that I watched on Netflix that I did in my last. I might have done it in the last review or the first review, and it's kind of like it's Korean and English.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to see if I can find it. Just looking through here now.
What sort of movie was it, Howard?
Space Sweepers.
Oh, Space Sweepers, because I was thinking for a moment about The Wandering Earth.
No, it's definitely...
But not that I'm aware that it's got any English in it, though.
Right, well, it's on Netflix, mate. So,
right.
Space Sweepers. And it's a mixture of Korean and English, mate. There's times where you'll just be dazzled by some of the like the sci-fi action in it.
Yeah,
it's just like it's real cutting edge brilliance.
Yeah,
but more importantly, it's got a heart. You care what happens to the characters, so it's it's not all bells and whistles. It is there's a heart to it. And I watched it and I was like, oh, I'm going to watch this. And I was like, yeah, it'll be all right. And then after about 40 minutes, I thought, oh, I'm enjoying this. And by it finished, I was like, well, I enjoyed that a lot more than I was expecting. So yeah, I'd give that a whirl. Give that a whirl, mate.
It's written down. That's
nice one. Well, look, thank you for taking all of this time out of your day to talk Movie Bollocks with me. I really appreciate it.
Well, I definitely think we've certainly been talking Movie Bollocks, haven't we? Like,
oh, a load of bollocks.
We've gone round the block. I never mentioned Kurt Russell, but yeah, we've done it again.
Never even mentioned Kurt Russell. Yeah, well, I tell you what, let's give it a couple of months, and we'll get you back on, and we'll compare notes on what we've been watching.
We'll have we'll get together and discuss what we've been watching and think about whether it's worth broadcast. But I think you need to see if you get the ratings, like, and find out whether we're entertaining or like people have switched off an hour ago. I don't know.
Oh, mate, look.
But it was an absolute pleasure, Howard.
I've always enjoyed talking to you, mate. I really do. I really do. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. When all this blows over, I do intend on a London trip in the autumn, and I definitely need to come and see you rather than like just gallivanting other places. Like,
it'd be good, man. It'd be really good. I'm looking forward to it.
Great. Let's hope. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed indeed, Gary, me old son. So there you go. That is what Movie Bollocks is all about. Basically, that's the kind of interview that could have been on Talking Bollocks and have been about music. Instead, it's on Movie Bollocks and it's about movies. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. I'm sure there were bits where, some of you will have been nodding along going, yeah, I totally agree. And other bits where you're going, fucking hell, what is wrong with these guys? No, but hey, that is what it's all about, isn't it? And what I'm trying to give you is the sound of a conversation that you're eavesdropping in on, that is quite interesting. Because let's face it, you can't go down the pub and eavesdrop on any interesting conversations. And the only thing to talk about is movies, really, at the moment. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did doing it. It was great to catch up with Gary for the second time in a week, and he's right. We were literally on the phone. Literally, I think it was for about 2 or maybe even just over 2 hours when he rang up to say that he wasn't going to be able to do the podcast, but we just went for it, and then we did it again. So anyway, there you go. I'm sure I'll be having Gary on again, because I just love talking to him. It's a great chance to catch up, and I hope you enjoyed listening to it. So whatever you're doing, stay safe, have a good day, and I'll catch you on the next episode of Movie Bollocks.